My name is Lee LeFever. I am the co-founder and creative director of Common Craft. And we're here to talk about the art of explanation, which is the title of the book, but also I think it has this nice crossover with visual thinking, that I think visual thinking oftentimes also is the art of explanation in some ways. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So a little bit about Common Craft just to get started. We got started in 2007. My wife Sachi and I are partners in Common Craft. We're the only employees and we work from home. And we started making these videos in 2007 because YouTube was getting bigger and social media was getting bigger. And we thought that it would be helpful if we could explain something in a way that people could actually understand it. So it's not just one of these technical explanations. So what was popular at the time was RSS, which is a way that you can subscribe to blogs. It was popular at the time, and wikis. And so these were our first two videos. We made them with paper cutouts on a whiteboard and didn't have any experience in what we were doing. We were totally new to this whole idea, but despite that, the videos went viral at the time and eventually became known as the first explainer videos of the YouTube era. And we became known as explainers, despite having no background or very little background in that kind of thing. And that's really been what we've been doing ever since, is making these videos and helping people sort of see the power of explanation as a skill. In 2012, as Grant mentioned, I published the book, The Art of Explanation, which has been translated into 8 languages and continues to be one of the books that people use when they're learning about explanation. And we're going to go through a number of the points from the book today. Today, Common Craft is still a 2-person company. We've really transitioned our business into making a library of videos that we produce ourselves, that we're not made to produce, that we provide to educators. And we also license our cutouts, which are the visuals that appear in our videos, because we listen to people and they said, I love your videos. I want to make something that looks similar. Can you provide your visuals? And so now we have a library of over 3,300 visuals that have appeared in our videos that we allow people to use to make their own videos. And you'll have a chance to get some of those for free in just a little bit too. We're a member supported service. So people become members of of commoncraft.com to access these materials. So that's Common Craft. If you're interested in the business side of what I do, my new book is called Big Enough, and it's about thinking about business in what I think is a healthier way, and seeing that small can be a very satisfying and way. Keeping things small is a way to think about success. So small note there. You can find it at bigenough.life. Okay, so I know that you're probably wondering, have I seen a Common Craft video or not? And I'm going to play a quick reel here. I'm going to just switch from this sharing to a video here. And then you should be able just to watch this on the screen. Let me do this. And then, so these are the videos that we're most known for, or clips from videos that we're most known for. So I'll play this and then I'll come back to the presentation. Let's see. Let me make sure this is working. I don't see the little green. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. Okay. Everybody, are we seeing the player, the video player? Okay, here we go.
Welcome to RSS in plain English. Every time you look for something new and it's not there, you've wasted valuable time. This is the old way. Welcome to Wikis in plain English. These 4 friends are going on a camping trip. They need to bring the right supplies because they're backpacking. Using a wiki, the group can coordinate their trip better. This is the new way. Yay! Real life happens between blog posts and emails. And now there's a way to share. This is Twitter in plain English. Files saved on one computer can now be available on all your computers and phones automatically. This is the big idea behind Dropbox.
All right, so that maybe some of you saw some videos in there that you might have recognized. I'll be playing a couple of more clips like that in a little while here. Let me come back to my presentation. And then we will move on here. So, okay, I think we should be back in the presentation now. Forgive the logistics here. All right, so as I mentioned before, I think that visual thinking is the art of explanation. I think that you are seeing the screen now, I hope. And I think that, like, for you, I imagine for visual thinking, we probably have similar goals as explainer videos. And I think if you're able to engage someone in an idea, then that gives you a chance to increase adoption, to earn attention, and develop ideas. So I think that we all have the same goals. I'm used to going about it more digitally, with a voiceover and things like that. But I think that we all have a lot in common in terms of what we want to get out of what we're doing. And I think that's really, an important thing to think about as you're doing visual thinking, is thinking, well, are there things you can learn about explanation that can help? So we want to get started with a brief activity here. We're just going to take about 5 minutes and we'll play some music. And we'd like you to just spend a few minutes writing down how you would explain visual thinking. And this can include graphic facilitation, sketchnoting, whatever you feel is your focus or specialty. And for now, we just want to keep that private. We're not going to share it, but I'm going to start a timer here for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and move on. So take a few minutes and we'll see you in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's take a look at, let's see. Okay. Earlier, there was a quick reference to a video that we made for Dropbox, and that is one of the most videos has been viewed the most that we've ever made, because Dropbox is such a big company. And I think that by talking a little bit about how that video works and why they made it, you can see sort of this role of explainer videos. So it starts with this idea of a Dropbox. Let's see, my slide is not advancing for some reason. Let me see if I can do it down here. Okay, so it starts with this idea of an explanation problem. And this is something that has driven our work for a long time, is trying to figure out what is causing something not to be adopted or to not be understood. And this explanation problem is something that Dropbox felt too. And the way I define that is when an idea or product's potential is being limited by how it's being explained. And you have probably seen this a lot dealing with technology, where maybe you're interested in something, or maybe you want to adopt a new tool, but you can't seem to find a way to understand it clearly. And it's a very common problem. It's like things look great for the product, and then they start trying to talk about it, and they realize that despite their potential, it doesn't really work the way they want. And I think that explanation is one of the ways that we can get around that. So for Dropbox, they have 700 million users today. So they realized early on that they had a product that could be useful to almost everyone with a computer. And they were technical people, they were programmers, and they were having a hard time showing why this could be helpful for people. So when they came to us, they had about 1 million users, but they could see that curve was going to keep going, and they wanted it to keep going upward, of course. And they thought, oh my gosh, we need a video. A video on our front page would hopefully help people see this from a new perspective. So we worked with them, and that really was their goal. They wanted a video that would take this idea of Dropbox, which was new to people. For those of you that might use Dropbox, it happens kind of automatically. You don't think about it, but it's actually a pretty hard thing to understand when you're first learning about it. So our video appeared on their homepage and was there for 3 years. They even tried to take it down and put something else up there, but it didn't work as well. The video was what converted best for them, and it was viewed over 30 million times, which is by far the most viewed video that we've ever made. And I think it is because it solves an explanation problem. So that's really the thing that we try to do most. So I want to give you just a couple of clips here. So the beginning of the video is focused on this idea of context, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And think about, this idea of the point of this section is to get heads nodding, get people engaged and thinking, oh, I know that pain. I know that feeling. So I'm just going to share the video here. 1 second. All right. All right, sharing is just taking one moment here. All right, maybe this will do it. Aha, okay. Here we go, 30 seconds.
You know how it feels to forget something like a wallet, phone, or keys. It's like part of your life is missing, along with the things you need. In the real world, you have to plan ahead to prevent problems. But these days, the important stuff you keep on computers and phones can be there for you, wherever you are. Files saved on one computer can now be available on all your computers and phones automatically. This is the big idea behind Dropbox.
All right, so that's how we start the video. And then I'm going to quickly share one more video that kind of sets up the storytelling of the video. Here we go here. Did you guys see that video, see and hear it fine last time? Yeah, great. Thanks, Grant.
Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He wants to bring it all with him and is tired of having to email files to himself. Then a friend told him about Dropbox.
All right, so really quick kind of example there. We'll actually come back to these examples in just a moment. But that's sort of what sets up the video. It's like, this pain is something that everybody feels. It also applies to technology. So it's that connection and then the story that comes from there. So let me switch back here. Okay, and you guys are seeing the car on the screen now? Okay, good. Forgive me. I thank you for being there for me in this time. Okay, so we talked about story. So the big idea here, I think, is that people won't adopt a product or idea they don't understand, and to me, that's true, and that applies to just so many things. Is that if you want people to get engaged with what you're doing, then a focus on understanding and explanation is key. So how do we do that? How do we think about it? How do we get into this idea of explanation and start to practice some of these things? So I'm going to share 5 tips here, and this is something we'll circle back to a little bit later. So maybe keep these in the back of your mind. But to start, we're going to start with the cause, or one of the big causes of explanation problems. And it's this idea of the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge is knowing that is this idea that the more you know about something, the harder it is to imagine what it's like not to know. And what happens is that when you know a lot, you kind of lose touch with that feeling of learning something the first time. And when it comes time for you to talk about it, you might not be able to make that connection as easily. So I made a video a couple of years ago that's based on a study that happened at Stanford called Tappers versus Listeners. And so I'm going to play another video here. This one's a couple of minutes long, but I think it frames this idea of the curse of knowledge pretty clearly. So I'll do a share here, and then yeah, okay. All right, here we go.
Elizabeth Newton, a graduate student, conducted a study at Stanford University that involved 2 groups of participants. They were tappers and listeners. The job of the tapper was to use their finger to tap out a very familiar song on a table, something like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or Yankee Doodle Dandy. The job of the listener was to listen to the tapping and guess the song. Before the tapping began, Ms. Newton went to the tappers and asked them to guess their rate of success. They guessed about 50%. Then she conducted the study and the tappers tapped out 120 songs. The results were astonishing. The actual rate of success was only 2.5%. 3 songs out of 120 were guessed correctly. 3 songs. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the curse of knowledge at work. Once we hear a song playing in our heads, it's really easy to assume that others hear it too. We tap away, assuming everything is fine, but in reality, people are not getting it. Now, think about this in the context of your work. All the terms, ideas, jargon, and examples that you use every day end up playing like a song in the back of your mind. You work inside a bubble where it all sounds familiar and natural on a level that influences your assumptions about what others know. The problem is that the song in your head works inside the bubble, but not outside of it. You can see the problem here. The curse of knowledge makes it difficult to know what language and examples will work. You tap away, assuming things are fine, but people are not getting the message. That's why explanation matters. It's a remedy for the curse. As explainers, we look for the curse in action and learn to adjust for it so that we can use examples and language that works for our audience.
All right, so hopefully that gave you a clear picture of this idea of the curse of knowledge. Once you start to understand the curse of knowledge, you start to see it everywhere. You start to see it in yourself. Like, I have the curse of knowledge. I think everybody on this call or this Zoom has the curse of knowledge to some degree. And part of the reason I like to share this is because you really start to see it. And it's an awareness that really can influence what you're doing. So keep that in mind. So are you guys seeing solution now on the screen? Okay, good. So the solution to this problem of the curse of knowledge is to think about how to repackage ideas. So taking an idea that's not working and think about it differently, turn it inside out, think about ways to approach it to make it more understandable. So let's talk about quickly these 5 tips for better explanations. And this is not about videos. This is just about thinking differently about how you communicate in a more understandable way. The number 1 is to write it down. And I know that you being visual thinkers, you're used to drawing, you're used to getting things on the page that aren't necessarily words. But I think explanations are often something that needs a bit more deliberation. If you're really working with something complex, it's great to make sure that you understand it first. I mean, that's really a requirement for explaining something, is your own understanding, and writing it down is a way to do that. So that begins with thinking about the audience. And I like this idea of pretending that you're writing a letter to them and starting the letter saying, I'm going to explain this as clearly as I can. And I promise you that the simple act of writing down an idea in a way that's meant to be understandable will inform your ideas about what your understanding is and how you might be able to do it better. Second is to think about the audience. I often say that explanation is like comedy, like that it's it depends on the audience and their perception. And that's why, comedy doesn't travel well, because different cultures have different ideas about what's funny, and puns work in different ways. And I think that explanation is like that too, that it's rarely a one size fits all, that an explanation is only successful to the degree it works for that specific audience. And the problem is that it's hard to know what an audience already understands, and it takes some forethought. So we use something called the explanation scale. And this is something that is in the art of explanation. And it's a way to visualize and to talk about and discuss the audience's needs and what they understand and how to help them learn more. And the idea of the scale is really to think about your audience as a place on the scale. And we use A to Z. It could be 1 to 10. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is to think about where people are. Are they on the less understanding side or the more understanding side? And then that allows you to think, okay, well, if someone's at A or B, then how do we get them down the scale? What's going to help them move to more understanding? And oftentimes that might mean that if someone is on the A side of the scale, then maybe they need context and big ideas. They need to understand the fundamentals. Where an audience that's more on the Z side, you might be able to assume that they understand the big ideas and that they need more of the details and the specifications and more technical kinds of information. So this is just a really basic way to get the conversation started. Imagine, if you're with a group trying to think about how do we market to these people or something, you might ask yourself, where would they be on the scale? And how does that inform your approach to this sort of explanation? My third point here is to build context. And I think we all know what context is, but in the process of explaining something, it's often really powerful to be able to spend some time building context, helping people see the big picture. I often say that content is king, but context is the kingdom. And that's like the world around the idea. Is really important. We saw in the Dropbox video, this idea of you know how it is. We can all agree, the pain. It's this process of getting people to see like, oh, I see what this is about. I see why this matters to me. That's the kind of context I'm talking about. So our fourth point is to tell stories. I think that storytelling can sometimes mean to people that you're doing a hero's journey and there's a long, very developed story that goes along with an idea. And those obviously work. That's a good thing. But I think in something like an explanation, it doesn't have to be so developed. And oftentimes it's really a simple process of adding a person to the information and to share the information you're sharing from a person's experience. And that often means that it's a balance between the facts or the information and the story. And in the art of explanation, there's this quote, facts give stories substance, stories give facts meaning. And I think that that's a way to think about this balance between the story that you're telling and the information that you're providing. And I think the combination of both can be really powerful. So again, in that Dropbox example, meet Josh, we're introducing a character through which we're learning about Dropbox. It could also be something that is more the first person, like one time this happened to me and this is what I learned. Or it could also be, imagine that you, more like in the second person. So just some things to think about the next time you're explaining something, how can you introduce a person's experience into it? One of the ways that this happens in Common Craft videos is a very simple idea that's also used in advertising and all kinds of stories is meet Bob. Bob has a problem. He feels bad. Bob found a solution. He feels great. Don't you want to feel like Bob? Right? Like we all know these stories, but your story could be very different content, but the basic idea of don't you want to feel like Bob is a very popular and easy way to approach this process of storytelling. One of my favorite pictures of this, and this is something that I think really applies to visual thinking, is this short clip from a lecture from the author Kurt Vonnegut, famous storyteller. So I'm going to share just this quick clip of him that I think you'll enjoy. He is such an entertaining character. So let me share this real fast and I'll be right back. All right, here we go.
The reason why the simple shapes of stories can't be fed into computers. They are beautiful shapes. This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Here's the very middle. Now, this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning. E stands for electricity. Now, this is an exercise in relativity, really. Is the shape of the curves are what matters and not their origins. So we'll start a little above average. Is why get a depressing person? We'll start... The whole thing, we call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it.
Oh, I love that. So you can find that if you look up on YouTube, like Kurt Vonnegut, Shape of Stories. There's a little bit longer lecture there you can find that's really entertaining also. So let me switch back to my PowerPoint here. Sorry. Okay, so are you guys seeing use analogies? You are?
It is now, but it did kind of go blank. So I'll let you know if it flashes again like it did before, but we're good for now.
Okay. Okay. So number 5 is this use of analogies. And I'm sure you all know what analogies are. It's really this comparison of one idea to another. I think of these as connections. It's like connecting one idea to the existing knowledge of the audience. So again, the audience is really a big deal here. So it's really saying that, you know, if yep.
Sorry, it is flashing again, so you might have to unshare.
Okay.
And share.
Let me just stop share here and then go back.
I think Zoom just can't take so many visual jammers in one place.
That's what it is.
Glitching out on us. All that creativity.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's showing me a couple of different options here. Let me see if this helps. Thank you for your patience. All right, I'm clicking share, but it's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, are you seeing a light bulb with a chain link?
Yay, got it.
Okay, no flashing?
No flashing.
Okay, well, don't hesitate to let me know. So the idea here is using an analogy to connect the idea you're trying to explain to existing knowledge, something that someone already understands. And the idea is that if you can do that, then that's a really powerful way to move them down the scale, is to say, this thing you want to know about is like something you already understand. So one of the stories that I think relates to this really well comes from Hollywood. And there were 2 producers named Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, and they were trying to sell a new movie that they had written. And they weren't having any luck doing that. They couldn't get anybody to bite on the deal. And that movie was Alien. And they weren't having any luck. And they realized, but then just as they were about to give up, a new movie came out and was a huge success. Jaws hit theaters. Suddenly everybody was terrified of sharks, and they had an idea. Like, what if we could start to pitch Alien from a different perspective? We could do it maybe in 3 words. We could say 3 words, and suddenly everybody would understand exactly what Alien is like. And what they chose was the words Jaws in space. And I think that really does frame what Alien feels like. It's like this terrible beast that's coming after everyone. And I think that's just a really great idea for an analogy, like connecting an idea. You already understand what Jaws is like. Now think about that in space. So those are the 5 points, writing it down, thinking about the audience, building context, telling stories, using analogies. So let's use this information for another quick activity. This one will also be 5 minutes long. We'll have some music playing, but this time, write down another explanation, but do it in the context of these new ideas. Think about some context, some story, some analogy. And this time, I think we might do a little bit of sharing at the end. If anybody is thinking of being a volunteer, I think Paddy might run that. So let's go ahead and get it going. I'll start my timer here, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Lee, are we just asking people to kind of write the rough outline of their script in words at this stage?
Yes, at this stage, let's keep it in words. We'll do something with visual thinking and drawing based on this a little bit later. I'm not, you know, if people want to draw, I'm not gonna. That's not a bad thing. But yeah, this is kind of that writing activity as a way to think about explanation.
Okay, thanks. Oh yeah, let's get
if I can share, I expanded a little bit on the early concept which I typed in the chat. So imagine you need to explain a novel idea, concept, or product. You may understand it well, but others haven't heard about it. To explain it, visual thinking makes it explicit to your audience what you're talking about. It also creates a context to illustrate how you may benefit from the idea, something along those lines.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing, Pedro. Yeah, I think that that idea of making it explicit is an important part of it. I often say that when explaining something that it helps to even prepare the audience to say, look, I'm going to explain this. Maybe you already understand it, but I'm going to explain it in a way that hopefully makes it even clearer. Francesco, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, if that's okay. Happy to share. Very often we talk for hours in Teams only to discover a long time later that we were using the same word to describe two very different concepts. Imagine if waving a magical wand, you could make appear what you have in mind for the others to see, touch, change, build on. The magic wand is your pen, your markers, and the school of magic is called visual thinking.
That's fantastic.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. That's great, Francesco. Yeah, you know, the first version of our Dropbox video actually used the idea of a magic pocket that was what Dropbox is in the real world would be a magic pocket that you could always find your keys in. And I like using that idea of a magic wand. There's this idea of sort of abstraction where you're pulling an idea out of its normal context and putting it in a different place so that it seems more understandable. Charu, let's do one more maybe. Charu, would you like to share?
Yeah, so what I have rewritten is unleashing thoughts by breaking bubble of knowledge while striking balance between stories and facts and focusing on context.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing. I think that's, I like the bubble idea for sure. All right. Well, again, thanks again so much for doing that, guys. I'm sure that you probably already started drawing, but we're going to draw in a little bit too. So let me share. Let me get back to the presentation really quickly, and we will move on. I'm just going to show you. Let's see. I think this is it. Okay. Seeing quick activity. You guys seeing that? No flashing or anything. Okay. Okay. So, part of what I thought you might find interesting here, you know, I work in the world of video and producing videos. And while it is digital and it involves technology, we've developed a really simple way to do it. So I wanted to share this with you in case you wanted to experiment with ways to maybe turn your visual thinking into something that's more like an animated video. One of the things that I believe is one of the most powerful parts of video is a combination of two different things here. And it's often termed dual coding theory. And in psychology, encoding is what happens when an idea is able to sort of embed itself in your mind, that you can remember it, you understand it. So that's educators really want to encode as much information as possible. And there's a theory that this happens with a combination of two things: hearing information and then seeing visuals that match that information. And this is kind of this magical matching of media between hearing and seeing. So this is something I learned after we started making videos, but I found it as a way to describe what we do. Explainer videos often have a very similar set of goals. Of course, we're focused on making something understandable. We want people to be feel informed and feel like they are learning something new from a new perspective. Our videos are usually 3 minutes or less. I think for online videos, this is a pretty good rule of thumb. We often use plain, clear language. For us, our videos are for educators, for schools. So our audience is usually very general public. And an important part of this is more why than how. And so if you think about a lot of the videos on YouTube, it's easy to find videos about how to edit a photo or how to fix a tractor or something like that. But I think that the explainer videos, from my perspective, are more answer the question, why should I care about this idea? Why does this matter to me? And those are sort of a different sort of intellectual sort of goal when it comes to the video experience. It's about changing perspectives more than point here and click.
Lee, I think we've lost your slides, mate.
So,
yeah.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Let's see. How are we doing? Do you see the 6 skills?
We just
Yeah.
do now, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just forward one slide and let's see if it works. Write the script. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, maybe it's going with a bit of delay, but yeah, just raise your hand, Grant, or just let me know. I can see you right beside me on the screen there, Grant. So maybe raise your hand. And so I just want to step. Great. I just want to step through our process really briefly. So it like I said before, it does always start with writing the script. And there again, we're thinking about like where this audience is. And there's 3 big questions that we try to answer. Who is this for, right? Again, focus on the audience. What is this about? What are the 2 or 3 big points that everyone must remember? And then how do we do it? Like, what's our approach to this information and making this information understandable? And that's where we get into story and analogy and things like that. One of the things that we realized is that we could understand the duration of a video by the word count. So I usually shoot for about 450 words at most. And my entire professional life over the past 10 years has been writing within 500 words. So it's a big constraint for me. And we do a lot of iteration on the script. The script changes significantly. This is obviously a hard copy version. We do it also in Google Docs, but Sachi and I back and forth. We're very different people, different kinds of thinking. So we are always passing these back and forth before they ever become videos. Once we feel good about the script, we start thinking in terms of a storyboard. And I'm sure that you might be familiar with what a storyboard is. It's a way to think about each scene of a video. And we developed this really simple way to create a storyboard template that maybe you can think about for how you might approach this. So we have the video script, as you can see here on the left, and then we use PowerPoint and put each scene of the video as the title of a slide. So we have a PowerPoint deck with multiple slides, with each slide being one scene. And then we print this out with 6 pages per slide so that we have this. And are you guys seeing a piece of paper here with sketches on it? So what you see here is a storyboard with the script for the scene at the top and then a blank space for every scene. And that gives us a chance to sketch out the very beginnings of the visuals for that video. So we might do multiple versions of these, but here we're working from the script and reading the script and trying to think, okay, for this script, what are the visuals that fit for this? And that informs what visuals we need. And then it also, that storyboard becomes more and more real. It gets more and more of the actual visuals that will be shared. And by the time we're done, it has all the visuals that will actually appear in the video. So again, if you want to do that, it's very simple to create these. And we'll provide you even, I believe, a template that it makes this very easy. So then when we have the storyboard done, we need to think like, okay, how are we going to get these visuals? Where are they going to come from? Do we draw them or what? And we work within some constraints. Common Craft has developed its own style, Common Craft style. And that means we use a white background in all of our videos. That comes from having a whiteboard as our background in the original videos. It's a very low noise experience. We don't put anything on the screen that's not there for a reason. We use symbolic visuals, not the real thing, not actual photos. Animations that reveal ideas. When we make videos, the paper cutouts that you saw in those early videos, those animations are very simple. They're stop motion animation. It's just people coming onto the screen, moving off, things stopping, and that can all happen in PowerPoint very easily. So that's what the very simple animations that we need work just fine within the animation tools of PowerPoint, and also simple versions of people. They don't have hair, don't have hands, because they're really just versions of people that are more symbolic than they are meant to be an individual. And I think that this idea of reality versus symbol, which I think that in the visual thinking community, you are very aware of this, but I think something like an actual picture of a computer brings up questions like, well, what brand is that? What features? Is it like mine? And your brain is getting distracted by things when really all that needs to happen is that, look, this is a computer. Don't worry about that. So we've chosen not to use those things and draw the visuals ourselves. Very simple version of a house here that I can do in 10 seconds on using PowerPoint, or I actually use our library of cutouts for videos. We built up enough over time that I can just search our own library for things. So those are the first three phases: writing the script, developing the storyboard, finding or creating the visuals. And then we move into the production phase, and that's recording a voiceover. All of our videos have voiceovers. I don't think videos have to have voiceovers. I actually like the idea of what's called readable videos that just have text on the screen because it's much easier to produce. We record right into a computer where we edit the audio first, and then put the video animation on top of the voice track to make it fit together. And so for animating visuals, we use two basic tools. Again, software, presentation software. Everybody kind of knows how it works, but there are animation tools within Keynote and PowerPoint and even Google Slides that allow you to bring things on and off the screen. And then screencasting, which is software that makes a video that records what's happening on your screen at any moment. So what happens here is, there's built-in tools that do that on both Mac and Microsoft computers. There's free tools like Screen-O-Matic and Jing. I use a tool called ScreenFlow for Mac. So the idea here is that you go into the presentation software and set up the animations on a scene-by-scene basis. So this might be, words appearing on the screen. It might mean, a coronavirus moving on the screen, or it might be a person holding their hand up, right? So you go through and create these animations in PowerPoint, and then you turn on the screen recorder, and so that it's recording your desktop, and then you play the presentation full screen, and words appear, coronavirus moves, person puts their hand up, and then that's all recorded. So you stop the recording and then save it as a file, a video file, like an MP4. And that is the animation that appears in the video. And then you can move into editing where you actually match these up. So you have a combination of the visual and the audio, and there's some editing that can go on to make them work well together. You can time it out. But that's really how these videos come together, is this combination of PowerPoint animations with screencasting and the audio. So that's really all it takes. So we use tools that come on most computers. It's not an expensive or that complicated of a process. So let's move into another activity here. So now we're going to get more visual, which I'm sure some of you probably already have. So we're going to take more like 10 minutes here. Paddy and Grant, how are we doing on time? Should we do 10 minutes, or do we need to make any changes?
So we're nearly at 7:10 here. So we got about 20 minutes left, Lee.
Okay.
So
I don't have much more. So
I was going to say, I think if we go from maybe say about 8 minutes, something like that, and then it gives us a bit of time to cover up, and then you got some nice prizes that we want to talk about as well. So
yeah, sure. Okay, let's do that. Let's do 8 minutes. So for this one, let's get visual. Use your script or whatever version of the script you like best, and do something that is in the form of a storyboard or a scene that has the visuals for your explanation. And we're going to do that over the next 8 minutes. So we'll check in and talk to you soon. Thanks. If Siegfried, you're on mute, if you would like to talk about it, maybe.
Yeah, the idea was just Fred in the meeting, frustrating everybody, just talking words, and going with visual thinking is to create different views.
Oh yeah, great. Yep, I think words are frustrating. I tried to have few words in my presentation too for the visual thinking folks, but they're kind of inevitable maybe. All right, anybody else that would like to share? Yvonne?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. I see myself now. Yeah, I have this scene, like picturing some complex problem in a company, like a big monster that needs to be untangled. Nice. And so I'm kind of thinking about the analogy, but it's like, it can be a very complex monster, and then in comes from the right animated in a visual thinker with his weapons that are this pencils and stuff.
That's great.
And by drawing he can untangle that monster, or even make it smaller a little bit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that would be one scene.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So I think Paddy, you want to tell us about LinkedIn?
Oh yes. Oh, hang on. I'll do it again. So we've created a post. I put the link in the chat, and so we'd love for you guys to share your creations. Just take a photo if you've drawn it by hand, and just feel free to add it as a comment. And then, as we said earlier, the top 2 posts with the most likes by this time next week will win some prizes. And Lee, in terms of those prizes, you're giving us 2 free courses. So one is a bundle, which is from what I know, it's your how to make animated videos and explanation master course is the bundle for the winner. And then second prize will be how to create animated videos, which is another free course. So Lee, do you want to quickly talk about those prizes?
Yeah, sure. We developed something called the Explainer Academy that has online self-paced courses. So it's some of the things we talked about today, along with some other, we go a little more deeply into this idea. The master course is really about explanation for any situation, and how to make explainer videos course is some of the things we talked about today, with lots more examples and ideas. So yeah, I'm happy to give those 2 away, and then I believe we'll also be following up with some other discounts and other goodies as well. Something else that we'll be offering is, last year, I put together something called a COVID communication kit, and it has templates for a lot of what we discussed today, along with a big pack of cutouts that you can use, that I'm happy to just give to anybody who's on the email list. I believe that's how that will work. Paddy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, that's it. And so I don't really I don't have any more of the presentation. I do have a little thank you screen that has my email address and things. I don't know if anybody would like to see that as we end up, but I think we can also just, see if we have any closing thoughts or anything from Grant and Paddy, or I can turn it over to you.
Yeah, sorry, Lee. I was just going to jump in there before Grant thanks you, because honestly, it's been absolutely amazing. There is another link I was going to share, which is Lee's big discount on his training course as well, and that's a phenomenal discount on that. So please, folks, if this is a topic of interest and you feel it's going to be useful for you, please do support Lee on that. I got to say, the guests that come on these sessions, they give up a lot of time, a lot of effort is spent in terms of preparing for these sessions. So it's usually a small way of us thanking them through promoting their products as well. So that links in the chat for you guys as well. And as Lee mentioned, we'll have a few other goodies on the newsletter for the Visual Jam as well, and I'll send that link. Sorry, Lee.
Yeah, totally. When I clicked that link, it was a different. I had a better a better discount. Let me see if I can find a link real fast. Go ahead and say what you're doing. I will post another link with an even better discount. Forgive me.
Even bigger. Look at this. We're so agile on this Meetup.
But yeah, go ahead. I will post something in the chat.
Oh, thanks. That's great. I mean, I guess are there any questions that anybody's got for Lee while we've got a couple of minutes of his time?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. It's been great seeing the comments. I really appreciate you guys. Do have a nice community here with lots of fun things happening in the chat. So that's been amazing to see.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is Hava. So I wonder, more often than not, I put it on the chat, but I hear people saying, I'm being so clear, and they have written it down and they've clarified it and so on and so on, but it's not at all clear. So, so you say write it first to clarify it, but you're just just machinating your own head, which isn't clear sometimes. I don't mean you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know that everybody does that. I think that if you, this is more of an intentional practice of realizing that there is a problem that you're having and you're looking for a solution, and the solution can be to sit down and think about it from terms of an explanation. I think a lot of people might write things out, but they're doing it without that context in mind. So to me, that's the real key, is to sit down with the express purpose of trying to make it understandable. And of course, there's always the second part of that, is to share that with someone in the audience, share it with a colleague, and to say, is this better? Is this working or not? So that's kind of how I would think about that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Lee, I just remembered there was a story you told about your wife. I forget the term you used about.
That's right. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that.
I find it fascinating. I'm sure the visual thinkers in the crowd will as well.
Yeah, this is really something I'm very fascinated with. So we learned recently about a phenomenon where people, like all over the world, it doesn't know any kind of gender or anything like that. Some people are not able to form visual images in their minds. So it's called aphantasia, and you can look it up. It's aphantasia, A-P-H, and phantasia, and it means without fantasy. And if I told you to imagine a red apple floating in the space in front of you, most people can imagine that apple, but some people can't. And my wife is one of those people. So I'm so fascinated in talking to her about even our work together. I realized that if I was talking about something abstract or something that required a mental model of thinking, it was hard for us to communicate. And I realized I needed to do something that was concrete for her, that used visuals on a page and not sort of imaginary. So for those of you in visual thinking, I think it's an interesting thing to learn about, to realize that some people lack that ability, which again, it's just fascinating to me, because it's not necessarily a disability. It's just something people can live their entire lives without knowing that they are different in that way. And it makes me wonder, well, what's happening in my brain that I assume is happening to everyone, but it might be unique to me. Have you guys heard of that before? Aphantasia? Yeah, I encourage you to look it up. It's been written about in the New York Times. It's not it's not something that's on the fringe of science. There's some real evidence behind it.
You got the story on your blog, haven't you, Lee?
Yeah. I do. I blog a lot at LeeLeFever.com. It's where sort of my writing home is, LeeLeFever.com, and I recently posted about aphantasia there, and the stories of working with my wife, and how we came about learning that she lacked that sense. I think a lot of people learn about it when they're asked to meditate. And in meditation, someone says, imagine that you're on a beach and imagine that there's waves lapping on the shores and there's palm trees. And people with aphantasia can't summon those images, and they just think that it's, very difficult for them. Another thing is when police sit down with someone to draw a sketch of a suspect, Sachi, my wife, has no idea how she can approach that because she doesn't have the ability to imagine someone's face, even my face or her parents' face. She can't imagine their faces. So again, just an interesting experience.
And of all the jobs she could do, Lee, she decided to do explainer videos with visuals. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I think that it actually is probably a secret to our success. I think that our diversity in that way is something that I think could be powerful because we're constantly challenging each other. And I think that what has become Common Craft style probably came to some degree from our what's called like neurodiversity.
Amazing.
Awesome. It's great.
So yeah, something to look at.
Okay, I think we're just about at time now, Paddy. So I don't know, is there anything we need to cover just to wrap up?
I think we just need to thank Lee. Huge round of applause, really. I think everything else is done. But thank you so much, Lee. I think you can come off mute if you want and kind of give a bit of a cheer.
Thank you.
Hey, whoa, whoa,
whoa. You're very kind. You're very kind. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, everyone. I really enjoyed seeing your work and seeing you in the chat. And I hope our paths will cross again sometime soon.
No, you have the best name of any guest we've had so far as well.
Well, I've got that going for me.
Rockstar. Yeah. Sure. And I just want to add, I think, Lee, you're one of the most humble people I've met, to be honest. We were preparing for this session. That's the first thing I said to Grant afterwards. We were both talking about it. We were going, what a really nice guy. And I think that really comes across in your style of presentation.
Thank you.
You're so generous with your knowledge. So thank you for that.
I'm happy to do it. I really would love to see more people doing what you guys are doing, what the visual thinking community is doing, and also in the explainer videos. That's more. We need more people who are better at communicating